So it astonishes me when people who have children don't care about sustainability, because we're not going to be here to suffer it, but the children are.
Welcome to Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, where I bring you real conversations with entrepreneurs on how they live their lives outside their business. We deep dive into the energies, the motivations, the habits, the disciplines, and the mindsets that make them successful in their life that leads to success in their business. Now, today, we're going to be talking about clothing, we talk about ethics, and we talk about a beautiful person who comes out into the world with her true beliefs and who she is, and how she comes out is exactly reflected with the work she does. So I'm not going to introduce her because I'm sure she can introduce herself much better than I can. So without further ado, hi Sukhina.
Hi, Bhavik.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I know you're super nervous, so let's not be nervous and let's share with the world. So I'll hand the mic over to you. If you can introduce yourself, and then we can roll with the conversation from there.
Sure. My name's Sukhina Garcia. I'm a founder of a label called BettyBrown. BettyBrown is a women's fashion label that is sustainable, ethical, and also vegan.
Perfect. Now, can I just ask you a very straightforward question? Where did Betty Brown come from? Because that's one thing I've always wondered since I've known you.
It's quite a funny one. When I've had the idea since I was very young, but when I was working on the side, I started doing little bits and bobs, and I one day just started making something, and I made a little blouse. And my Swedish friend came over, and we were just on the sofa having a glass of wine, and I said, I want to show you this blouse, and I've got this idea. And so I showed her the blouse, and she's like, that's amazing, you should really go for it. I was like, yeah, but I need a name, I need a brand, kind of thing. So we were just sitting there for ages, and Betty is actually my nickname from when I was a child. So all my neighbours, when I lived on the street that I lived on, they were really elderly. They were sort of like in their 70s, 80s, and none of them could pronounce my name. So I think it was Ken next door who called me Betty. So the whole street basically used to call me Betty when I was a little kid. And so Betty was like the focus of it. And then Swedish being quite blunt as they are, so she sort of come out with, why not Betty Brown? And I was like, Betty Brown? She was like, because you're brown. I was like, well, it works. And it just kind of stuck from there.
Perfect. So Betty Brown, what do you stand for, and how does your clothing represent you as a person?
So the business has taken a bit of a change now, and after last year I had a bit of a fumble with the business, and I had to sort of almost close. I had to close my boutique down, which I'd had for 5 years, and I had to close down the boutique and sort of start to relaunch myself. But what this allowed me to do, though it was a really sad time for me and I was so upset about it, what this allowed me to do was rebuild the business in more aligned with my core values. So I was aligned with my own values, what I really think is right, because at this point I had nothing to lose. So if I was going to build something back, I was really going to do it to what is meaningful for me. And for me, I don't believe that any person or any animal should be harmed just for the clothes that we wear. When people think vegan fashion, I think they think quite hippie, tie-dye, kind of ugly-looking clothes. So we are vegan because we don't use anything like wool or cotton or anything like that. We only use organic, which means that no farmers, no children, no land are harmed at all. It's all sustainable, it's all ethically sourced, and we make sure that we produce it in the right way, so it's kind to planet and kind to people.
I was amazed by something that I watched or something I read about the amount of resources it takes to create clothing, natural resources, even water, the amount of gallons that goes into cotton and dyeing, etc.
Yeah.
Did you, when you decided to go into fashion, so let's go back. Where did the energy come from, the creative energy to set you out on this path of clothing and design clothing. What is it that triggered you to move into this area?
So I've always been into fashion since as long as I can remember. I think the first time I ever designed a dress was when I was 9, and it was with a black bin liner and anything creative I could find in the house, like bottle lids and anything sparkly and shiny. And I think that picture still somewhere has to be. But yeah, I've always been into fashion, and even when I was at university, I was looking to go into other things, but I always still worked in fashion. My first job was even in a designer fashion store. So I've always loved fashion, always worked in it. And I left my career when I was 30 and decided that I'd had enough of what I was doing. I kind of learnt a lot and just needed some time out, because by that time I'd worked for 15 years full time. So I moved abroad, did nothing for a year, learnt to sleep. And I thought, well, what am I going to do with my life now? You know, I need to hit my goals still. You know, I had these prominent goals, one in particular, and how was I going to achieve that? So I thought now's the time better than any just to follow out this idea that I've always had about creating my own label. So I borrowed a sewing machine from a neighbour down the road, and I got onto YouTube, got some old clothes, took them all apart to make fabrics, and then just started to learn myself to design and create clothes, basically, and just gave it a shot, really. Yeah.
And what was the difference with you between, there's so many people that have ideas and think, okay, I might be good at this, or I'd like to do this, or I'd enjoy this, and then suddenly life, LIFE, gets in the way, which means I've got bills to pay, I have this to do, and I have that to do, and never, it's almost like a back burner, and then on the dying days it's the regret that sits in their mind. I wish I did that, or I wish I did that. What was the difference with you in terms of the energy? You thinking, actually, I think that'd be quite good, let me just go for this and not really think about it, and let me work it out once I've walked through that door?
I think I had the vision already. I think I had that vision in my head that I can do this, I can achieve this. I'd worked in the game, like I said, for a long amount of period of time. And I had so much passion inside of me for clothes, for designing, for making women feel fabulous. That's what I get a buzz out of. Job satisfaction to me is seeing a woman look in the mirror and feel great, and I can see the way she's strutting up and down in front of the mirror feeling amazing. That's job satisfaction for me. But this time I just wanted to do it for myself. And I think for most people, when they're thinking about setting up a business, it's about your why. Why is it that you want to set up your business? You have to find your why to find your power to do it. So my why to set up a business is because I want to buy my own home. And this relates back and back and back to me. But my goal in life is to buy myself a home where I have stability. And when you work in fashion retail, you don't work in fashion retail because it's going to make you money. You work in fashion retail because you love it. So the next way to do fashion retail, which is what I love, but earn money, is by doing it for myself and setting up my own business. So any person doing it, whether it is because I want to spend more time with my children, whether it's because I want to retire when I'm 50, whether it is whatever your why reason is, that has to give you enough push, enough motivation for you to strive for that goal.
Yeah, agreed. And it has to be self-motivation, right? It has to be intrinsic. It has to be a why that serves you deeply and it resonates with you wholly, in order for you to continue even through, like you mentioned earlier, an adversity that happened where you had an issue with the supply and you had to close your boutique down, etc. And these are the hurdles that, if you don't really have a love for it and a passion for it, they're the things that are going to stop you, right? They're the things that are going to say, actually, I'm not doing this anymore, I can't deal with this. Whereas if it's an overriding purpose and overriding passion, where you know, irrespective of that hurdle, I'm going to get around it, under it, over it. It may set you back for a moment, but then the brain will start activating again to find out what would be the next step. Now, you mentioned earlier about your upbringing in another country. So was it Sweden, did you say you were born?
No, so my friend was over from Sweden.
Your friend was from Sweden, right? Okay. So what, from young age, you said you started from 9 years old with your bin liner. which is a great story for any aspiring clothes designer, right? Like my daughter as well, she likes the whole making sort of bangles and things.
Yeah.
Done it. Now, from a young age, so you said you started cutting things out. Was there anyone inspiring you in those days to move into this area?
No, I mean, I always enjoyed creating, and I don't know where my love for it really came from, really. Like, I did love clothes always, and I think I was just very creative. You know, when the blue PT moments used to come on, when you had to make things out of a toilet roll, or, you know, I was always there. I was always there. And then when I remember being in secondary school, and I think it was like the first or second year in secondary school, and we had to write might have been a bit older, but we had to write an essay, and we had to do research and write an essay. So we all had to go to the library, and we all had to choose a topic. You know, some people chose animals, some people chose space, you know, and I chose a fashion designer. I chose Alexander McQueen, and I was doing my research on him and on fashion, on history of fashion. And yeah, it's just always been there, really.
So using this creative space that you have, the creative energy that you seem to have, through not just clothing. So you're talking about fashion, you're talking about clothing and creativity, and you're sharing your knowledge and your skills with the people around you in the output of your clothing and your work. Now, the ethics side of this seems to have cropped up more and more, especially recently. There's been a lot of news on especially fashion retailers using unethical sources to, you know, like Leicester factories having quite a bad reputation, fast fashion having a really bad reputation in terms of the resources. And I heard somewhere it's probably the biggest drain of resources on this planet, fast fashion, especially the way it's actually worn and the way it's used. Now, what kind of a small dent are you trying to make into this to try and first of all spread the message of ethics and, like I said, vegan fashion? And how are you playing this out with the clothing that you produce?
So some of my main goals about the business is to educate people. So I use my social platforms to educate people about what they're buying, why they're buying, how it affects the planet, you know. My biggest education I've been spreading at the moment is about cotton and where it comes from and how it affects people and the planet, because everyone just buys something and thinks, oh, this is lovely cotton, but they don't know the harm that's gone behind that. And it's something I'm really passionate about, because essentially that's what really changed my business. When I heard about how cotton was produced, that was just a straight up no for me. Because as you know me as a person, I'm all about good vibes and love and, like, you know, great energies. And when we're making our clothes, it's really important that we have great energy in the room and everything's sewn with love. You know, if I'm not in a good mood, I don't do any sewing. So when we start to find out about, you know, what the real truths are behind these things, that's what changed me. And because it changed me, I think that if I spread that word, it will change to other people. People have always said to me, oh, why don't you manufacture in Leicester? Why don't you manufacture here in Leicester? And I was like, because there's reasons that I keep shouting to people and telling people that it's right here on our doorstep. You know, it doesn't have to be on the other side of the world. It's happening here 2 miles down the road, you know. And I'm glad now that people are starting to listen. But for the example about Boohoo, how they've come up now and it's turned into a major thing, that's been happening for the last couple of years. They were on Panorama about 2 years ago. They were in the newspaper about a year ago, and nothing really happened. It's only, I think, because we had this COVID time that they've now made a massive thing out of it. And I'm really glad that they have. And I hope that they use this, and everyone uses this, as a time to look at it, see what they can learn from it and change it to better. You know, maybe actually Leicester could be one of those places, you know, like my dream is to open a factory that is sustainable, that is really on really good ethics, you know, and maybe we can, as a collective in Leicester, start doing that.
How do you think this narrative is going to change, though? You know, in terms of, you see Primark, for example, right? And I've been in there and I've seen stuff and I'm like, how do you produce a t-shirt for £2? How do you actually produce it, make it, get it on the shelf and sell it and still be open for that kind of money. So again, it just doesn't make sense to me. My thinking has always been buy something, spend more on, and price is not necessarily the equating factor, but buy better quality, but buy less, because that, that for me makes sense. But when is it, it just seems to be that the fast fashion message seems to be that people have bought into this thing of buying it, wearing it a few times and chucking it away. How long is it before that mindset is going to change? Because it seems to be really deep inset or prevalent in a lot of people.
I think during this COVID period, a lot has changed. And I think even the big design houses like Gucci and Prada and all those, they've now started to also go, we can't keep doing this anymore. This is not sustainable. And they've all had time to reflect. And I've really enjoyed reading about how now they've decided we're not going to do 6 collections a year. We're just going to do 2. So like myself, I only do spring, summer, autumn, winter, where these all do like 6 sort of collections a year, and it's really not needed. I think people are starting to slowly become more mind conscious. So they're starting to hear more information from people. They're starting to see more. I think there's a difference between, so I think that our generation don't really care much because we're so in that mindset. And I think the millenniums just want to be popular. And so they're buying into this, they just want to look great for Instagram and kind of, but the younger kids that are now at the ages of like 9, 10, 11, I think they're the ones that are going to be there to change the world. I think they're going to change the whole fast fashion. I think, they're the ones that are watching David Attenborough's programs and actually listening to what is going on in the world. Sustainability is about, on the whole, sustainability is about what we leave for our children. So it astonishes me when people who have children don't care about sustainability, because we're not going to be here to suffer it, but the children are. So I think really it's going to be the young ones that are going to really make that change. But hopefully the world is spreading. You find now there's more brands, like even if you do go into Primark now, you'll start to see that there's some labels that say this is made with sustainable cotton, or this is sustainable. They've started putting sustainable tags on now because it's becoming more of a trend to take care of the planet, and we have to take some kind of, action here.
And I think so true about, talking about the next generation, the generation after them, because even if we look at the COVID situation right now and the finances, so, all this government borrowing to keep people in jobs, keep them there, eventually it's not us that's going to suffer with that.
No.
It will be my kids and their kids, right?
Exactly.
And this is the thing that astounds me, how there's such short-term thinking, oh, what can we do right now? But what are we doing to help them? We're burdening them with all this, all the decisions we've made, the enjoyments we've had. Someone else has to now suffer. And I personally don't think that's right. So as much as I can do as a parent to try and, buffer that somehow, it's like my daughter, as soon as they were born, we started putting money aside for her education, university, because we know 30 to 50 grand is going to be easy by that time. If we can put that aside so she doesn't have debt, then I've done some kind of service. Like I started both of them a pension. Now, my friends were like, my son is 5 and my daughter was 9 at the time, and I got them a pension, and they're like, you're crazy. Well, what are you getting a pension for? I said, because 2 things. First of all, I want them to have the idea of putting something aside always for your future, even though that's not what it's meant for. Secondly, is that if you have that long-term thinking always, you'll always be all right, because you're not thinking in panic and you're not thinking in fear. And when that time arrives, that £50 a month that we saved actually might add up to something in the future, right? So it's those little steps that we can make right now.
I think that's wonderful.
Just little things. Now, Sukhina, if we take your mask off of a fashion designer, and let's talk about Sukhina, what inspires you the most today?
What inspires me the most is my past. I never want to be in a situation which I once was, and I'm determined that I will never be there. So that keeps me going every day. It keeps me hungry every day for my goals. It keeps me really hungry.
And are you willing to share a little bit more on that? Only
Yes.
if you're comfortable. If you're not, it's fine as well. No problem at all. It's just that I find that the stories of trauma, stories of heartache and hurt,
Yeah.
are more lights to shine for people going through a similar thing. So yeah, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something I generally put out there a lot, but I have gone to schools and things and done some inspirational talks. I was actually homeless. I had a pretty rough bringing up when I was younger. And by the time I was 16, I was found that I was homeless. So at 16, I kind of was wanting to go to college and still live out this, a normal life, but I was sort of, living out of a black bag in a little squat and then in a hostel. And at the time, a lot of people didn't know. And still a lot of people don't, a lot of people tend to think that I've been spoon fed all my life. And yeah, being at 16, sitting in a council office with nowhere to sleep that night is pretty tough. And I had to work really, really hard. I had to work a full-time job and 2 part-time jobs to get myself through college. Because in those days, if you wanted to educate, you weren't given a council home to live in, or you weren't given any support. But if you wanted to get pregnant, they would have given you a house straight away. And I decided to go against the advice of having a baby and just started to get a job and try and keep up with college and working at the same time. And I've pretty fought my way all the way through college and university, which was really hard. And, my dream goal is to buy myself a home. I'm still not there yet. With not having a support around you, when it's just you and you don't have, family or parents, for those blip times, it's hard to then get yourself out of them. And everyone goes through them in life. So obviously I've had quite a lot of them. So I'm not quite there yet, but that's what keeps me hungry for moving forward, is that I'm never going to be back in that position that I was then. I've worked too hard and I have a really strong work ethic.
And something you said, a key decision you made was, in terms of getting a home, and back then, you decided to take the harder option, which was working your ass off to try and make a better life for yourself. Now,
Yeah.
where do you think that energy came from? Because obviously that comes from somewhere, because a lot of people decide to take the easy route and the option of the less friction and less hardship just to have an easier life. But you didn't choose that, because I know personally when I've been through hardship, at one point I was over £250,000 in debt with real bad decisions that I'd made, and it's taken the last 8 to 10 years to work through that and then be the strongest I am. And now I look back at that time and think, I look back at it as the best time of my life, even though it was the time of my life which was the hardest. And the time, I woke up one morning crying to my wife and said, I can't do this life anymore. And she goes, you've made all these choices yourself. Now it's time to choose again. And giving up is not a choice. So looking back now, that's what created the version you see in front of you today. And I can look back wholeheartedly and say that was the best thing to happen to me because it created who I am today. What, if anyone is going through a similar kind of situation today, because I know being in COVID, being in a pandemic, a lot of people are in quite a stressful time. There's a lot of hardship out there. There's a lot of uncertainty. What advice would you give them based on your life and what you've been through?
Don't feel sorry for yourself for too long. I think that anyone can achieve anything. I'm really dyslexic, like heavily dyslexic, and just going through that daily is a tough thing to do. But at school and university, and it never stopped me from going, but I'll find a way around it. There is always a way around it if you want it bad enough. And I think that a lot of choices are made from when people don't fight for things is because they're feeling sorry for themselves and just think that there's no way out. If you really want something, but you have to do self-work. You have to get up and, when I'm feeling shit, I'll go onto YouTube and put on an inspirational quotes talk, or I'll put on Tony Robbins, or I'll put on, or something, to give me that strength, because we all have those days. But the thing is, you have to find the solutions within, and you have to find them by yourself, because no one's going to hand them to you. And if someone does hand them to you, they don't have the same effect. I think self-work is really, really important.
And it's those, and like you said, it's those moments that where when you do the self-work, they create the next version of you, right? Where you know that this is hard, life is tough, but I have enough faith in myself to get myself out of this. But also, like you said, other people may give you information and advice, but they're not walking your path. They're not walking in your shoes, right? So when people talk about judgment, when people talk about, oh, I won't do this, I won't do that, but you walk every day in their shoes and you'll be doing exactly the same thing because you've been raised with the same information, the energy that they have. And therefore, all you can do rather than judge is try and make their life a little bit easier by helping them if you can, or leaving them alone, because they don't need that kind of, eyes staring at them, judging from my privileged position, look at you. And it's something that resonates quite deeply with me, because that whole judgment thing really frustrates me, because how can anyone look at someone else's life and say, I wouldn't do that? Because you've not been there. You've not been in that situation. When you are in that situation, let's see what you do, because that's when you can see who you really are as a person. When I'm privileged in the way of, I have a home, I have food on the table, I have people around me, so many good people that even if shit hit the fan, I've got enough hands underneath me that will pick me up and move me back on. And that foundation of support and love is, I know, drives me to say, I need to take risks, I need to take gambles, because that's what's going to help so many more people if I'm the best version of myself for the people around me. So even starting something like,
I think that's really key. Sorry, I think that's really key in what you said about the people around you. And I think that if you have people around you that are going to judge you and say things, don't have those people around you. The people I have around me are a handful. Like, I don't share my much with many people. If you're in my circle, you're lucky to be in it, because I don't let people in. And I think everybody shares too much with too many. And I think that you need to really keep around you just good, solid people. And I think if you have good, solid people around you, you're not going to get that judgment. And anyone that's giving you judgment, you need to just stay away from them, because so many people have these big circles. And I think that also affects how you think, and I think that you really need to choose wisely about who you keep around you, and then you won't get that judgment as such, because you won't be hearing it, because those people around you wouldn't do that. But unfortunately, the whole world is full of judgment.
And that only happens, I think, as you get older, you start learning more about yourself. And when you go through hardships, when you go through traumas, you learn so much more about yourself that you're not willing to put up with that shit anymore, really. And you shape your world the way you need to see it, by the perspective and the way things that you need to see, rather than trying to be a people pleaser or someone that's going to just make people happy, right? Because the only people you make happy might make everyone else happy, but the most important person is you. If you're not making yourself happy, then there's no point you even living here, because everyone can see it. Everyone knows it, that you're not happy, but you're just carrying on a life that you're living. And that doesn't make sense to me. And if that message can be shared even louder, especially for the next generation, where do things that make you happy, because if you're happy, the people around you are happy, and the ones that are important to you will be happy as well. So exactly. I like that message, what you said. And like I said, a handful of people is all we need. And like I said, we're not here to live anyone else's life. We're here to live our life. And so many times, for what you do, and I can see, being an entrepreneur, living in the space you live, there's so much we do on our own, right? We do so much silently. There's so many silent battles that we fight every day within our business, and the decisions lie on us. So therefore, if we can have some strong people around us, that when times are not great and there are low, we can pick up the phone and say, it's a bit shit, but I'm all right. Yeah, it's a bit shit, but I'm all right. But I just need to dump. Let's have a glass of wine and we'll be all right, And it's nice to be authentic enough to be able to say that, but honest with yourself, to know that it's those scars and bruises that make us the person we are, not the fanfare and the adulation.
Yeah. So, business is isn't for everybody, you know. Business is really tough. If people always say to me, oh, you're so lucky you have your own business. And I say to them, you're so lucky you go home at 5 o'clock and don't have to go back in until 9 o'clock next day and not do anything. You know, people think it's so easy to have your own business and it's so wonderful and you're free to do what you want. You're not. You're a slave to your own business, you know. And it's not for the faint-hearted, you know. It's hard work. And if you can't self-motivate, maybe being an entrepreneur isn't for you. And I'm one of those, I'm a realist. So I'll tell you how it is, you know. It's not for everybody, you know. You have to have some certain qualities to be able to be successful in it. Your why has to be really strong and your self-motivation every day. Because when you work for yourself, you don't have to get up in the morning and go to the office. You have to find that self-motivation to get up and go to the office.
Now, if we fast forward 2 years, okay, so we're now sitting having this conversation in 2022, and you say to me, Bhavik, I've had the most amazing 2 years of my life, and from the last conversation we had to the conversation we had today, it's been an amazing wow ride, and I'm here now. For that conversation to be real, what needs to happen?
What needs to happen is in 2 years' time, I see that my business is really developed. When
you say that, what do you mean?
So I want to have my own little tiny sustainable factory that is here in Leicester, and it works well. I was just talking today to somebody actually, and I was just saying that, you know, when I get my factory, I was like, I'm going to have 2 rules. That every time we go for a lunchtime break, there's going to be a tiny yoga room and everyone has to do 5 minutes of stretching. And I was like, and then before all the workers leave for the day, they have to go back in the room and do a 10-minute meditation before they leave. So I'm manifesting this, factory that I'm going to have already in my head. You know, I already know the types of people I want working for me and all the goals that we strive to hit, and just try and make a difference in the industry to show people that it can be done, you know.
And what's stopping you from that happening?
At the moment, I'll be honest, it's just finance. It's just finance. We've had a massive tumble, and this was the year we were supposed to rebuild, but COVID came along and decided to change our minds. It took us in, you know, the great thing about COVID is that I'm not very good at something, and what I'm not very good at is taking care of myself physically. I'm not very good at that. And this year, COVID has given me the chance to take care of myself and give myself some self-love and some time to really try and balance up, because I wasn't balanced before. This was me and this was work, you know, and it's coming nearer and nearer now, which I've learned is really important. And actually it's probably more productive being that way. So COVID has been great, but it's also been really crap.
Yeah, and you see, these are the times that will strengthen you, and you'll look back and say, these were the times that were needed, where we can step off the wheel for a few moments and really reflect on yourself, right? And when you realize that when I'm strong, everything around me is strong, then you know it's so important that you, as the person, the energy, the creative thinker behind the business, needs to be at full point, because when you are, then everything will work. And like I said, don't limit yourself, because it sounds like you're using your past to project into your future. Your future is limitless, and there's so many opportunities that are just literally a breath away, which you don't even know about yet. So keep that mindset open.
It's about having faith in everything, that everything is going to happen in the right direction. And when you have that faith, you create that positive energy, which then just starts snowballing.
And just remember, everything happens for you. It doesn't happen to you. So whether you see it as a negative or a positive, it's happening for you. And later you'll see why. So always have the faith that everything happens as it's meant to happen perfectly. And it will all happen in its own time when you're ready. So as we head over to the end of the conversation, Sukhina, I'd like to ask you a couple more questions, just so that the listeners can understand a little bit more about you and the way you think. Okay, so now let's project 100 years into the future. You're at the end of your life, and so much has happened. You've created a global brand of clothing. Everyone knows Betty Brown, and you're on the tops of all the people that you need it to be on, whether it be just the students or top CEOs. Everyone agrees with your ethics and the messages come loud, as well as you as a person are known as a real positive global leader for women and fashion. So we're now at the last moments where you don't have enough energy to speak, but you've got enough energy to write down 3 words. Those 3 words have resonated with you all your life and they've helped you. If you were to share those 3 words, what would those 3 words be for you?
That's a hard one. The 3 words, the first word would be love, because I believe that everything can be cured, can be answered, can be solved with love. Love, compassion. I think the world needs a lot more compassion, and I think if you live compassionately throughout your life, not only will you be happy, you'll produce, everything around you is happiness. Can I choose 4 words?
I'll let you. You're the first guest that's asked for that, so I will let you just because you asked.
I would say work hard, because for me that really has paid off, and I think that I don't think people have the right work ethic anymore. And I really think that working hard is really important, because that's how you achieve. And the last one was be gratitude. Be grateful for absolutely everything that you have. Gratitude, for me, if there's only one thing in the world that will cause happiness, is gratitude. It's the key.
And what I find when you said about work hard and achievement, what I found is the things that have been the hardest to achieve are the where you have the most gratitude for and you're the most grateful and you feel the most sense of achievement. When it's almost come too easy, it's almost forgotten as quickly as it's come. Whereas when you've had strife and you've struggled and you've got it out there, that's what makes you the proudest, because you know the energy that went into it. And I think there's today's society, there seems to be a massive connotation on struggle, about struggling. But what I found is everyone is going through their own struggle, whatever their life is, no matter what it looks like on the outside. And struggle is what creates us as a human being. It's what's kept us on this planet for 2 million years. So let's keep struggling, but struggling and enjoying the struggle, because the struggle is enjoyable. Because like you said, growing a business, learning to adapt, all these things.
It's on your mindset, isn't it? If your mindset sees it as an enjoyment struggle.
Yeah.
But I think too many people like having a struggle in a bad sense, because they get into this motion of bad things are always happening to them. And I think all of a sudden they start thriving off it. And then when something isn't going wrong, they find themselves a bit lost, because they're so used to being on that pedal of striving downwards, So I think it's all to do with mindset. Struggle can be great in 2 ways. You can really enjoy the struggle and use it as a challenge and, to strive forward. But some people, I think, sort of sit on it and sort of enjoy it in the wrong way. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, of course it does. Now, also, this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So you're connected to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They can all hear you. There's no language barrier. They're all conscious and awake. If you had a message to share for the next 30 seconds, what would that message be?
Be vegan. Be vegan. We are better united than divided. Love everyone and everything. I would just probably say that is that we're together, we're better. Being vegan helps the planet on several different ways that you can think of, and is better for the children, all generations coming up. Love and gratitude, those things will bring a world together, I think. Unite.
They will. And the more people that express that opinion and share their views and put everything they have, whether that be in work or personal, with those kind of ethics behind them, this world can only be a better place. And it is a great, amazing place where we have to treat each other as individuals and know that everyone, like you said, is here to help, here to support. Your skills are helping so many people. but so many people's skills are helping you. So that's, I think, the way we live as people, and we just can't. I think we just have to have respect for each other and share our journey together, and just be kinder. I think just being kinder to each other, right? And giving each other a bit of time and a bit of space and a bit of patience to say, I get you, it's fine. Give yourself a bit of time. So thank you so much, Sukhina, for that. Thank you so much for being authentic. Thank you for the way you turn up in the world, and thank you for the message you're sharing and the ethics you put out and your true honesty, whether it be online or in person. You are the person that you show, and I love that, and I'm glad you come out that way. Is there anything you'd like to say just before we go?
No, I think we've sort of covered everything.
No problem at all. Well, I'll hook up your details on the show notes afterwards if anyone does want to connect with you.
Yes, if you want to learn more about how to be sustainable, how to look after the planet, how to say your gratitude in the morning, then follow me on my social platforms.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, so this was Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, and I'm BhavikPatel. I'm your host. Just before we go, just a few thoughts. Big energy leads to big thoughts lead to big ideas lead to big actions, and big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, goodbye.
If you think about personal branding even, there'll be hundreds, thousands of people that do exactly what you do, exactly what I do, but no one will have got to where we've got to in the same way.